Hi, and welcome to the Quaboag Hills Chamber Connection. My name is Bob Lavoie, CEO of the Quaboag Hills Chamber of Commerce. This is a new episode, hopefully several to come. I'd like to introduce you to my first guest, Anne Gobi. Many of you know she is now Rural Affairs Director for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Welcome, Anne.
Well, thank you, Bob.
Thanks.
This is great, and I think it's wonderful. You're starting this new series, and congratulations on your new role. I know that the Chamber and the businesses are thrilled to have you, and it's great to be in this role that I'm in, so we have an opportunity to collaborate again, so it's great.
Right. I was looking so forward to it because as you and I talked in the last couple of weeks, we're both starting these new positions, and when we had originally spoke, it was about your interaction with the rural communities and mine as well, and how we can benefit each other. So if you could just give us a little bit of what the direction of rural affairs is and how
Sure.
I can help with the chamber.
Well, I appreciate that. So this is, as you mentioned, it's also a brand new role. The governor, when she was campaigning, to her credit, she said that she wouldn't forget the rural communities.
Right.
And came up with a director position. It wasn't something that I had given a lot of thought to, and so when I had received a phone call from the administration if I had any interest, I was kind of taken aback a bit.
Sure.
But realizing that I could still work with all the communities that I'd worked with as a state rep and state senator. And I like Governor Healy, and I was thrilled to be able to kind of jump at this. So part of my role, I'm under the Economic Development Secretariat.
Right.
So that's Secretary Yvonne Howe, who's wonderful. I don't know if you've had an opportunity
to
meet with her, but I'm sure that she would love to come out to something that the Chamber is putting on at some point. And so my role is to reach out. There are 181 rural communities out of 351.
I was going to say over half.
So over half I classified as rural. And what's used as a definition of rural is either if you are under 7,000 population or if there are less than 500 people per square mile.
Okay.
And that definition is used because basically that's what's used for grants, for rural and small town grants. So we're using that same definition. So part of my role is to reach out to the town administrators, town managers, or as you know, many of those small towns don't have either one of those.
That's true.
They have a select board and most likely an executive secretary. Sometimes the chair of the board is doing a lot of the work in the community.
Right.
So to reach out to those people to find out, what is kind of the economic direction of your community? What do you want to see? So not what the state wants to see for you, but what you want to see and how I can be helpful, how the state can be helpful.
Right. No, and that's where I think the Chamber can help kind of bridge that gap as well. Because when I'm out, I see a lot of businesses, and again, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but a lot of the challenges are matching employer-employee opportunities, employers looking for possible grants either at a federal or state level to kind of facilitate that, and transportation as well, housing as well.
Absolutely.
And they're all, the cool thing that I like that you just touched on was this is a partnership that's going to come from the grassroots level up.
Correct.
It's not coming from the governor's office down. They're looking to you and folks like me who are out and interact with the businesses and the people every day and say, this is what we need out here. How can we work together? How can we help?
And that's why you and the Chamber is so important because, you're on the ground.
Right.
You're seeing, I know you had a busy weekend and
but it's
at
fun.
a number of events.
Right.
But, you're talking to people and you know what your membership and you know kind of what the direction is of the communities that you serve. And, that's indispensable to me. And as you know, Bob, I've already been leaning on you, and asked you on some information on some of the 15 communities that you serve because those are all the towns that are part of my rural area. So I was thrilled the work that you've already started and the kind of the rejuvenation of the Chamber. And so they're lucky to have you in this position.
Thanks.
And it's just nice. And it's good for me that I can continue to collaborate with you after the work we had done in the town of Palmer. So. Right.
No, and you've always been a big fan of not just the town of Palmer, but rural space, open space as well. And
and I think that's, you brought that up. One of the jobs, one of my roles that I see is that to kind of remind people in other parts of the state,
Right.
that, rural doesn't necessarily just mean farms. It doesn't necessarily just mean open space. There's a lot that our communities have to offer. And I mean, you think about the businesses that you represent,
Right.
and the diversity of talent
Well,
and business. It's incredible, and people don't realize that. So it's also an opportunity to kind of be a cheerleader for these small towns as well.
It is 100%, and that's why I like being out in the field with the members, because they give me their direct feedback and then turn to me to say, you're in that position because you have resources, and obviously you being a key at this point, and you relaying back to me, here's what's available, how can we be a fit to certain members that you may have, or certain communities that may be eligible for a grant that they weren't even aware of.
Yeah, and that is part of my position as well, to make sure that people are plugged into the right grants. And unfortunately, for a lot of small towns, it's not so much that they're not eligible for it, they don't have the personnel to write those grants.
True.
And they take up a lot of time. And so besides the work the Chamber does, the regional planning commissions are extremely important as well, because they tend to offer some of that technical assistance to be able to help write those grants for the smaller communities.
Right. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but we had talked about that briefly too, about putting some type of a collaboration together between the regional planners, yourself, and the Chamber, and seeing again how we can kind of form an even deeper partnership so that they can take some of that legwork off the independent business owners.
Right. And I think that we have a lot of great resources, but maybe we haven't been bringing them all together in the way that we should. And so I think this is an opportunity to do that.
I agree.
Yeah.
So in the future, very near future, I will reach out to at least the planners in our 15 communities, and maybe in the next few months we can put the word out to them and hopefully get something together, so that you said we can kind of all get on the same page in the same room.
Right. And actually, just before I came into this meeting, I had a call. There is going to be some municipal meetings that will be taking place, and I'll absolutely let you know when anything's happening in this area.
Thank you.
But my understanding is that it's something that the Lieutenant Governor wanted an opportunity to come out to different regions and to meet with the planning authorities, meet with folks from the chambers, and meet with some of the town leaders. Again, just some of the conversations that need to take place. And one thing that I sort of insisted upon is that at those meetings, because they're looking to do 6 of them throughout the state, so in different regions, and kind of focusing in maybe on some of the regional planning area regions. So they'll be working with the regional planning authorities to try to figure out, where that would take place. But I'm just asking that on each agenda, at least 15 minutes at the end of the agenda would be specifically on rural issues. So yeah, so I will absolutely let you know. This will be, it'll be September, October timeline, so it'll be coming up fairly quickly. I'm just waiting for the actual dates. I don't have the actual dates and places yet, but absolutely will let you know, because I think it's really important that you're part of those conversations as well.
And I'll be there.
Yeah, I know you will.
Any place, anytime.
Yeah.
Because it will, and I think it'll be unique to the region in that, to get that on the ground interaction with not just folks like me, but like you had said, the planners are integral.
The planners, and I'm really happy that the Lieutenant Governor, having been the mayor of Salem, I think that she comes in, realizing how important the municipal voices are.
True.
And I'm really happy that she wants to be at each one of those meetings.
Yeah, that's
great. So I thought that was great.
That's great too. And I think having you in this new position where you are, this role, because you're key to us here in Western Mass, and I think what I feel, and whether it's deserved or not, a lot of folks think that the eastern part of the state kind of forgets about the western part sometimes. So it's good to have you as a direct connection for me, as well as the Chamber, because again, we stretch across a couple of different regions and 15 towns. So.
Absolutely. And the other part is that there are rural communities up in the northeast part of the state, along the New Hampshire border. There are rural communities down at the Cape, and so I think that sometimes people don't think about areas of the Cape being rural.
No, you're right.
But it's very rural in some areas. I mean, actually, Martha's Vineyard is considered a rural community.
No kidding. Based on those numbers.
Based on those
Right,
numbers.
right.
And when I was talking to folks in Martha's Vineyard, and people say, oh, they think that we have all this money, but he said, we run into the same issues. We don't have enough labor.
Right.
And in order for someone, say, to be a police officer or a firefighter on Martha's Vineyard, they have to make a certain amount of money in order to live there. Otherwise, they can't live there.
True.
So it's kind of it's an interesting dynamic. So they rely on people from kind of the mainland, so to speak,
Right.
to come over and to help them. But that's anyhow. So it's interesting. I'm learning a lot.
No, and that's good because you just lit up a bulb for me too. So let me just double back a little bit. So you really covered the entire Commonwealth.
Correct.
So wow.
So you're correct, though, that the majority of those 181 rural communities are in the western part of the state.
Okay.
But there are pockets through all over the state, including, like I mentioned, up in the northeast corner to the most southern.
But you're right.
corners.
And to my ignorance, I hadn't realized that either because we think Western Mass is it, and then the eastern half is the eastern half, and that's a whole different animal. But it's really not in reality when you do see those pockets.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I'd like to do also in this role is to realize that the folks that are living, say, in Chester, have a connection with the people that are living in Manchester by the Sea. That there's something. So there's things that we can do.
Because I found that too, just in the month and a half that I've been in this position, I find a lot of business owners are kind of dialed into, I know there's grant money or opportunities there, and I see it. I have no idea how to access it. Never mind once I do, like you had just mentioned, the procedural, what do I have to go through?
Right.
What's the time frame? What's the timeline to get that grant in and it so can possibly be approved? So it's a lot of the in-between of, here's the resource, here's us, how do we connect those two?
Yeah, and when I came in, I'm just in my second month in this position. Every so many years, the state has to do an economic plan for the state and to plan.
Right.
And so when I came in, the economic office had already had some meetings, and I was able to sit in on a few of those. And those meetings were also held regionally to listen to folks and say, what is the state doing right? What aren't they doing right? And one thing that came out quite often was about grants, saying, it needs to be easier to apply, needs to be more streamlined.
I agree.
And so I do think that you're going to see some major changes in how grants are presented to people, make it a little bit easier. And it should be, it shouldn't be a mystery on how to access a grant.
I agree. And just to kind of double down on that, even my limited experience with the town council here in Palmer, grants are a kind of different animal, and people are very specifically in that niche. And God bless you if you've got a good grant writer. Don't ever let that person stray, because they are invaluable to either your community, your town, because what they know procedurally, but also to streamline it and make it simpler. Because I know right now, again, like you, only being here a couple of months, I'm in the midst of helping a couple of members of mine who've been in the process of applying for grants, kind of in limbo, saying, I think I have everything, I'm not really sure, can you help me out? And so I'm trying to put all the pieces together to complete the process. But you feel where it is,
it's a lot of work.
And it's a lot of work on their part, but they're eager to, if the funds are there, they're just eager to expand their business or their operation or whatever it may be.
And the other part of what I'm trying to do too is that, unfortunately, there are some grants, if Palmer is applying for something, sometimes they're put in the same pool as Springfield.
True.
And it's really difficult for Palmer to show maybe some of the same needs that a city does.
Right.
And that's unfair. You can't have that kind of apples to oranges thing.
Right.
And so I am looking and trying to work with the administration if there are ways, if we need to tweak some of the grant programs or the language on what people are able to apply for, because it doesn't make any sense to do that.
No, because I know a couple, actually the two that I'm dealing with now are more than likely under the tourism spectrum, because that's primarily what they do, and they're seasonal. But the actual grant is going to be put towards hard assets to improve their facility, their business, so that even though it's a tourism, it's a hard hard facility type investment.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that's how they're looking to grow, and it also enhances their base in certain cases. Maybe they can stay open a couple more months rather than a tight window, seasonal window.
And besides the two of us that had just started, there is a new director for tourism for the state. Her name is Kate Fox, that originally came from Salem. She
great.
ran tourism in the Salem area, and I had a chance to meet her about a month or so ago. She's very anxious to, figure out ways that they can be more helpful. And one thing I didn't realize, her office, I think she only has like 4 people in it, which I was like shocked.
Wow.
When you think about how important tourism to
For the
is to the state
entire
of
Commonwealth.
Correct, extremely important. And you look at other states that are our size that have very large, and I'm not saying that I'm not talking about changing the, but it's just
True.
You when you have a department with only 4 or 5 people trying to take care of really driving tourism for the entire state, that's not a lot of folks to do that.
It isn't.
And one thing that she mentioned to me was that in years past, a lot of the focus was trying to get people outside the state to come to Massachusetts.
True.
And outside the
Yes.
country to come, which is good, but not focusing on people. We're a state of 7 million people, and why not keep those 7 million people
right here, right here,
and with
right.
all that is to offer. I mean, you mentioned you're up at the Orchard, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, we have so many neat places.
Right, and the wineries,
Correct.
2 wineries,
Correct.
which are phenomenal, and just going there over the weekend and seeing, I hadn't been there maybe 2 or 3 years, but how they've grown, the customer base was growing. I mean, it's kind of their seasonal kickoff because it's early.
But they're family.
But they're all
and
family,
towards
and that's the
families,
thing. And you've
right.
got, it's such the model of the family owns it. The high school kids work there during the summer, then they go back to school,
Right.
kind of work through college and that kind of thing. And it's just that whole core that you see the customers come in, they go there every year kind of thing, then their kids start to work there, and it's just a whole community event. And so naturally you want to do whatever I can do in my position to say,
Right.
how can I help you grow? And to your point too, maybe get some people from the eastern half of the state
Correct.
to say, hey, let's go out to West Springfield. We heard there's what
Exactly.
am I saying? This whole area,
Right.
and go to a winery or go apple picking or go to any other local. Now brew pubs are popping up everywhere.
Sure.
We've got a whole bunch of those coming on. And it's just exciting things that I think a lot of people, maybe not in the total 15-town footprint, are aware of, and it would be a cool weekend trip or a road trip.
Yeah, it's amazing because you talk to people and coming into the fall, and they'll say, "Oh, I want to go to Vermont for the foliage." It's like, why?
Yeah, it's right
Why?
here.
It's right here,
yeah.
and there's so many things to do. So
It's true.
there are a lot of things that we can work on to help with the economic development of small towns, and to really and to make sure it's what they want. Like I said,
Yeah. So tell me this.
Yes.
I know that you are a direct relation to now not only the legislature but the governor's office. So between us working together, what's the best opportunity for me to kind of engage my members more? Just speak with them and then channel it through you?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, if they're able to bring things to you, and I know you have my cell phone, Bob,
Yes, I do.
and I always take your calls.
You do.
I think that's because I am an office of one.
Right. Hey,
I
welcome
don't
to
have
the
any-
club, right?
I
All
don't
us
have,
rookies who are on our own.
Right, we're kind of and I don't, I'm not totally on my own because, as I mentioned, I'm under the Economic Development
Right.
Secretariat. If I need something, they will help, but I
Sure.
don't have a staff, so to speak.
Sure.
So, someone had called me and said, "Oh, who do I call to get you on a schedule?" I said, "Well, that would be me."
That would be me. And I'm the same way. I have a phenomenal board that I
Right.
work with, but they all have things
Absolutely.
that they're into too. So I'm the same way. And funny thing was, we were at an event. I had an after hours a month ago, and normally, there's people taking pictures of the event so that we can post them later. And I had a new member contact me after and say, hey, the staffer that was with you taking all the pictures, could you send that to me? And I just got a chuckle because I'm like, it's not really a staffer.
Yeah.
It's somebody on the board of directors,
Right,
but that's
right.
okay.
That's okay.
But yeah, they all pitch in because
Sure.
that's what it is. We're trying to rebuild for, last couple of years things were obviously, as you know, through COVID and everything else, and we're in a rebuilding mode. It's just exciting, especially this time of year. Busy, busy, and this half of the state, fall events are just nonstop.
Right.
And it's just a great time. Great time to be getting launched into it.
So I appreciate you having me on, and I know that we'll continue to stay in touch. And
without a doubt.
Yeah. So this is great.
Right. Anne, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We'll talk to you very soon.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks again, Anne. And that will wrap up the first edition of our Quaboag Hills Connection. If you're interested in being a guest, please give me a call at 413-277-8128, which is my cell, comes directly to me, or just simply go to the website, qhma.com, and send us an email. Be happy to have you on. We could chat, and we will see you very soon. Thanks for joining us here on the Quaboag Hills Connection.